my last two videos, I showed you all of the books I read in 2014 and then also my favorite books of 2014. I thought today I'd talk about my 5 most disappointing reads that I read in 2014. Now this video is not going to focus on just simply bad books because I did a video on like books I didn't finish a while back, so you can go and watch that if you want to hear about books that were literally so bad I couldn't get myself to finish them at all. Today I just picked 5 books that I had very high expectations for, but that then unfortunately didn't quite live up to those, and they're very, very disappointing. Yeah, let's get started. The first book I want to show you in this category is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. If the title doesn't give it away already, this book is about 5 sisters that one after the other commit suicide and nobody knows why and nobody knows what's happening. And as the reader you think, okay, eventually we're gonna find out some big mystery, there's gonna be some big revelation of something or other, and there isn't. There simply isn't. This entire book is just a retelling of the events. You know from the very second you start the book that the 5 daughters of this family are going to commit suicide, and that's pretty much all that happens. There's nothing that happens. Like literally nothing happens except that they do exactly what they told you they would do. It is really freaking boring. It's not even like we get any kind of psychological insights into what went on in their heads when they did it or anything like that. This book is told of the perspective from some of the boys that live like right across the street from that family, and literally all they tell us is what they saw and experienced and what the girls did, but like we don't know why they committed suicide for the most part, except that they were depressed for some reason or another. Like I don't know why anybody would waste pages writing about something that has literally no point. So I guess a lot of people think this is a really good book. I certainly didn't think so. The next book was both intriguing to me in terms of cover and synopsis, and it's Ink by Amanda Sun. I mean, if you just look at this cover, you will die because it's literally so beautiful. It's so well illustrated. It's made of this like papery texture and it just feels awesome, and I just like love it. I love this art, and there's also like a little face on the back there as well, so it's just really beautiful all around. The premise of this book basically is that Katie, an American girl, has to move to Japan to live with her aunt because her parents are dead, I believe, and also her grandparents can't take care of her anymore, and so she has to go live all the way at the other end of the world. At first she feels like really left out in Japan because she doesn't really have friends and stuff, and she's very overwhelmed by the culture, but then she meets Tomohiro, and he seems like really interesting, and for some reason he seems to be able to manipulate ink to his liking, and when Katie's near him, his skills and his powers seem to magnify, and things will actually come to life that he draws. And it sounds like such an awesome premise that includes Japan, Japanese culture, and a lot of fantastical elements. But the story is literally so poorly written. There's no purpose of anything. Again, it's a similar situation with The Virgin Suicides, where you feel like there's supposed to be a sort of end game situation here, even though this is, I think, a series and there are sequels to this book. There needs to be some sort of an ending, you know, there needs to be some sort of a conclusion, but there, like, literally nothing happens really important. Also, as a reader, you don't really care about the characters. Like, there's some things that happen to them that could potentially make you feel sad. I guess that's what they were there for, but it just doesn't happen because you literally don't give a shit about anybody in this book, and that's never a good situation. So thanks very much for the pretty cover for my bookshelf, but no thank you to the rest of it. The next very disappointing book I read in 2014 was 172 Hours on the Moon by Joan Harstad. This book, if you listen to anybody like Goodreads reviews and even the synopsis itself, sounds super freaking creepy. And while you read it, you do have this sense of just like creepiness, like something is happening. And then the end is just like, dude, what the hell did I just read? Essentially, this book is about a lottery where 3 teenagers win a ride to the moon, basically, and they get to live up in a space station or something, if I remember correctly. And it's basically just about what happens there, and this book is speckled with random occurrences of very creepy things that never get explained. And even though at the very end of the book there was a shudder running down my back because the imagination of that thing that happened at the end of the book happening in real life is freaking terrifying, it was just like, you're just left completely, I don't know, by the side of the road. No explanation given for anything that happened. Nothing. It's just like the author made some stuff up and then threw it at you and like vomited it out at you, but didn't give any kind of explanation as to why it was happening or tie those events together in any way, shape, or form. I think in giving a book a creepy atmosphere, Joan Harsted definitely succeeded with that, but it just could have been so much more and so much better if done correctly, and if given just a better all-around feeling and tying everything together a lot more purposefully. The next book that I thought was very, very disappointing, unfortunately, was The Retribution of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin. I really, really loved The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer, and I was even quite okay with The Evolution, but The Retribution just, what the hell is this book even? Like, I don't even have words to explain it. If you didn't know what The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer is about, it's basically about this girl who finds out that if she envisions a person's death, that person will die in exactly that way. It's similar to Death Note. In retrospect, this realization just came to me. But basically, she can make people die by just thinking about killing them, and it doesn't make her feel particularly good about herself. Mara ends up meeting Noah, who seems to have a gift of himself, and it's the opposite to hers. He can heal by touching people, and he can heal himself, and so basically they're two polar opposites that are supposed to work really well together, and obviously they fall in love and stuff like that, and you're just thinking like, this book is so cool and dark and a little creepy, and you don't know what's happening in book one. Book two then turns a corner and takes a completely different path from what you thought that this book was heading down, and you're still like, okay, you know, this is going to be difficult for the author to let play out in any kind of meaningful way, but it's still a possibility. And then read The Retribution and just like, I don't even give a fuck anymore. Like, the story and the characters have been taken away from us. It seems that way. It seems like this book is a completely different story that has nothing to do with book one anymore, and you just left like not caring because these aren't the same people anymore. And so it really didn't live up to the high expectations I had of this, because reading book one, you just expect so much of the series, but it's just a really big letdown. And lastly, the most disappointing book I've read, not only this year, but probably ever, because it broke my heart and it ruined my life. Well, not quite, but as close as possible. Ruin and Fucking Rising by Leigh Bardugo. I was one of the lucky people who got to marathon this trilogy, because I only read Shadow and Bone this year as well, and so I didn't have to wait for any sequels, which I guess in retrospect is very good, because I probably would have built this book up in my mind a lot more than I ended up doing already. Again, Shadow and Bone is already a very popular book, but if you didn't know, it's about Grisha, who have basically certain powers and things like elements they can influence, and then there's the Darkling, who is the master person of all the Grisha, because he has the most power and he has also very dark power, and it's about this girl, I forgot her name, so sorry, but I think it's something like Elena, is it? No. What's her name? Honestly, I could check. I have the book in my hand. Elena! So close. The protagonist of this book is a girl called Elena, who has very strong powers of herself, and her powers are those of the light, and so she's basically, again, the very counterpart to the Darkling. It becomes clear very quickly that the Darkling is evil, and he uses his powers for very, like, untoward purposes, I guess. And Elena decides it's her job to fight against him, basically, but he constantly tries to pull her on his side because thinks that together they could be very powerful, which indeed they could. And it's just this kind of forbidden semi-romance that you totally ship. Like from page one, well, he didn't appear on page one, but like from the very beginning of Shadow and Bone, you just want them to be together so badly. Like, even though Elena from the very beginning kind of has this crush on her best friend that she grew up with, and you know, things start developing between them a little bit as well, you still constantly think like eventually she's gonna be with the Darkling and everything is gonna be perfect and amazing. And she has those like evil tendencies within herself as well, as you can notice also in book 2 and then even more in book 3 as well, and like everything. And then in the last book, literally just everything that was built up to become like really, really great, and that I think really every reader anticipated to happen and wanted to happen with all of their heart didn't happen. I think it's good to take your readers by surprise, but the book basically destroyed the entire trilogy. It did. Alina made very stupid choices, like just literally silly and mindless choices where you just wanted to throw your head against a wall, or hers preferably. It was literally just bad choice after bad choice for her, and you started hating her and doubting her, and everything just completely fell apart. Nothing happened the way you expected it to and wanted it to, and it just didn't make any sense to anybody. It felt like the author had thought about turning things the way that readers wanted them to go, and then just willy-nilly decided to not do that and stubbornly went on her path that she thought was better, but that turned out to be a complete failure. And it was just horrible. Like, I hated this book so much, and it just broke my heart and put me in the worst reading slump of this year. So I'm blaming Miss Lee Bardugo for not completing my Goodreads challenge, because I could have read those extra 12 books, okay? I could have read them in the month that I didn't read books because of this stupid piece of just ruining everything, true to its name, ruining everything, including my life. Melodramatic moment over. So that's it, you guys, for our most disappointing reads of 2014. I hope you guys didn't have to suffer the same pain as I did, and read a lot of books that made you happy and that you really, really enjoyed. I'm also hoping that 2015 will go better in all respects. And I'm gonna see you soon. Bye! Happy January, everybody! I didn't read that many books in December, but I did end up getting through 6. 2 of them are rereads, actually 3 of them were rereads, 1 ebook, and then 2 sequels. We started this month off with rereading The Unbecoming of Dyer by Michelle Hodkin, and then followed up with both The Evolution and The Retribution, Dyer.